Hello, my name is Lizzie, and this is Lizzie's Literary Life. And today, actually, kind of a while ago, because apparently I never introduced this vlog, so I'm doing it now as I'm editing it, we are reading the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2024. And with that, like I said, I never introduced this vlog. I'm doing what I said I would do, where I read the long list books. The goal is to read as many as I can before the shortlist is announced. And you're about to see how that goes. So let's go for it. Hello, I'm here to tell you about the first book for this vlog, my first Women's Prize read of 2024, which I actually have already finished. So sorry about the lack of midway through updates there, but I did finish Brotherless Night by, I'm going to try to say this as best as I can, V. Ganeshananthan. I think that's how you say it. That's my best, Ganeshananthan is my best approximation. Much respect to this author. And apologies for not knowing how to better pronounce your name. I listened to this book on audio, and I thought it was really good. This was a solid start. This is a book about the Civil War in Sri Lanka in the 80s, and it's about this woman, this young woman. She's like 19 at the start, or 18. She's in high school at the start, I think. And at the end, she's only like 20. This young woman who is studying to become a doctor in Sri Lanka as the Civil War breaks out, and how she gets involved. And she has four brothers, and it's how she and her brothers get involved with the movement. She is... I don't want to really fully explain the politics there that are embedded in the novel, but she is Tamil. Her family is Tamil. Tamil? I listened to this audiobook and I still don't know how to pronounce things, but her family is ethnically on the side that is initially being persecuted, but becomes kind of a militant group. That's as far as I'll go into it. But the first line of this, if you remember from my first lines video, is I sent a letter to a terrorist I used to know. And that's 2009 is the sending a letter. And immediately after that line, we flash back to 1980, early 1980s, and we don't go back to her sending the letter to the terrorist she used to know until the very, very last chapter. So that 2009 is really like a jacket around the rest of the bulk of the story is in the 80s, when she used to know this terrorist. And it's obviously way more complicated than that. But what I appreciated about this book was the way it blended the larger national political discussions, international political discussions, with this woman's dreams of becoming a doctor and what it's like to be in medical school at this time, and the mundanity of that, and the family relations with her brothers and her parents. And I thought it was a really beautifully done story. It definitely took me a while to connect to, possibly because of the audio, but also, I mean, the narrator did a fantastic job, but just the medium took me a while to connect to. Also, I think there were a lot of characters, and perhaps this would not, and I felt they had the names, partly because I'm not familiar with the names of the Sri Lankan culture, but they felt very similar to me. Like all of the brothers, it was hard for me to tell apart her four brothers, because the names were not familiar, and also like hearing them rather than looking at them written down just made it hard for me to distinguish between them for a while. And I think there were just a lot of characters right at first that it just took me a while to connect to, but by the end I was there. I was connected at the end. So while I think the audiobook narrator did a fantastic job, I do kind of wish I had read this one with my eyeballs, just because I think I would have connected to it a little bit stronger and I would have gotten into it faster. Overall, though, I gave it 4 stars, which is a very solid start. I think it's a really very well done story. I don't know if it's shortlist material necessarily. I mean, maybe. This one was also longlisted for the Carol Shields Prize, which is like kind of a new competitor to the Women's Prize. Um, it was the only crossover on both lists. So I just felt like it wasn't doing, it was a pretty, I didn't feel like it was doing anything new in terms of form. Like it was a very kind of innovative story in being historical. Like I didn't don't hear about this story, but I felt like the form of it was very linear. It was very like the narrative style wasn't anything new. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in a women's prize read. But then again, I said that same thing about Demon last year and then it won, so who knows? Who knows? I've been talking for a long time about that book, but it was really good. And then I have started and am this far through, and then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. This one is, I'm not going to give you too many thoughts so far, but I'll give you a synopsis. It's about an Indigenous Canadian woman who is married. Well, we start off in her teenagerhood, in her adolescence. We have like one chapter when she's young, living on a reservation, and that was fun. But then the bulk of the book is about her as an adult. She's married to a white man who is studying her culture. Like he's a scholar of Native Canadian history and culture. And she met him because he went to interview her mother. Um, and they have a kid, they have a newborn, and it's about motherhood. So it's about Indigenous Canadianness, but that's kind of a background to the foreground of the story is about motherhood and postpartum mental health. Because she's not really connecting to her baby, or she feels like her baby's not really connecting to her, and that's about what I've got so far. So I will let you know probably when I've finished this one or if I have other major thoughts. But Brotherless Night was a very solid start to this list. And this one, this is the one with the first line about the green toenails that I really did not like in my first lines video. If you haven't watched that, it'll be linked if it wasn't linked in the intro. But I do like this cover, so and I'm in it's good so far. I just am not very far into it, the meatiness of it. So we shall see. Hello. So I am this far into And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. This I was struggling through the first, I'm gonna say like 2/3. I was struggling through the first 2/3, but I think that's partially due to where I was in terms of like a little bit of a slump of for eyeball reading, like reading with my eyeballs, physical reading. I was struggling a little bit to want to pick stuff up, and I think it was partly this and partly just like an overall life feeling. But I'm getting into it now at the end. It's very, I think I told you a little bit what it's about in my last clip, but we really get like, I don't think I mentioned the like supernatural paranormal element here. Our main character, basically hears voices from things around her and like experiences things that should not be talking to her. And it's kind of unclear whether it's actually supernatural or if she's like not in her right mind, and she's getting increasingly paranoid about all of the people around her. And again, it's hard to tell whether like she's being overly paranoid or if the people around her are actually involved in something sinister. So it's a really interesting like it's it's interesting trying to like figure that out, but I think it's also an interesting commentary on like gaslighting and like the gaslighting and disbelieving of minorities in terms of like, are all white people actually terrible? You know, like I don't think I can articulate this well right now, but
it says something poignant about society. I promise. I promise. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It did take me a while, and I'm not sure how all of the pieces are going to come together because we've got this like motherhood piece, the like postpartum, not feeling connected to your baby piece, but also the conspiracy type piece, and I don't know how they're going to necessarily connect, but we'll see. I'm intrigued.
Excuse the dryer going in the background, but I finished And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. And this is an interesting one because I think in the last clip I told you there were parts of it that were dragging for me, but I really liked the concept and the themes. And then in the end, like after that update, it really picked up and I was like really invested. Though I think part of the dragging was like me dragging in terms of like my physical reading, eyeball reading motivation. Um, but we get to this climax in the story. And then we get this page, which I'm going to show you because it doesn't mean anything out of context, but it looks like this. We get to that page, like right at this moment of climax, and then we switch perspectives. So I'm not going to tell you how, but I wasn't expecting it. And at first I was like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if this is where we really needed to go, but I think it was. I think it worked. And the ending of this was very just like nice, but also it's hard to say like how I feel about the ending without spoilers, but I felt like it wrapped up really nicely, and I think it really, the way it wrapped up and that perspective shift really emphasized the themes, which was awesome. This, I'm giving it 4 stars, which is the same as I gave Brotherless Night, but I think this is higher. Like it just was more for me. Like it was more. I don't know how else to say that. And I also think it's more likely to make the shortlist than Brotherless Night. I thought Brotherless Night was really good, but I think, like I said, it didn't do anything really new in terms of form or like literary style, and this certainly did. So, yeah. Yeah, this is a book, just to tell you the themes, this is a book about family and motherhood, but also connecting to your more of your family, your ancestors. It's about culture and it's about being a minority. It's about the paranoia that comes with that minority experience, and it's also about mental health. Um, and I thought it was really really good. So this is really solid, and I think definitely a solid contender for the shortlist. Actually, like I said, more than Brotherless Night, this feels really like a women's prize book. Um, but then the next one I'm going to read is Enter Ghost by Isabella Hamad. This one, all I know about it is that it's set in Palestine and it's about Shakespeare, like a production of Hamlet, which just sounds so up my alley. And people have been saying that they think this is going to win, because of its relevance to current cultural, political events. Um, so, yeah, I'm really excited to start this. I'm going to start it right now, and I will update you when I have a little bit more of a sense of what it's about and how I'm feeling about it. Hello. Firstly, a couple things. Number one, I am in Edinburgh, Scotland, to visit my brother, so that's exciting. Change of location. Maybe I put some B-roll clips in if I took them, but I've been really bad. I was going to do a vlog for this week specifically for the trip, and I have been really bad at that. Also, I do have a bruise on my head. We don't need to be concerned. I'm just pointing it out. I've been a bad vlogger because I have finished 3 books since I last updated you. In my defense, 2 of them were really short, and one of them I finished on the plane, so it was like. But I'm going to take you through those books that I have finished since I last spoke to you, and I also am going to rank the 5 books that I've read so far for this. So, the first one I finished was cover Western Lane by Chetna Maru. This was at least longlisted, maybe even shortlisted for the Booker last year, and I thought it was fine. Like, the writing was good, but there was no plot really, and it's like this long. Like, it's like an 100-page book, like 4-hour audiobook, really short. And I just didn't feel like it was enough. Like, this is the one about squash. So it's about this girl and her sisters who play squash, coached by their single dad. And it just, nothing happened, but also there were not, like, it was just really subtle. I think I've heard it described as subtle, which I can appreciate, but I just didn't feel like it had enough to it for me to really grab onto it necessarily. So I gave that one 2.5 stars because it wasn't bad. It just wasn't really anything to me. And then I read Hangman by Maya Binyam, and I will put on the screen, you're seeing it, the US cover, which is extremely weird and unsettling. And the book matched that vibe exactly. It was so weird and unsettling. Like, it's hard to even tell you what it's about because it's not really about anything, but in the way that Western Lane was not really about anything, this was not about anything, but the writing was such that it was interesting enough on its own without plot. I don't know how to describe it. It's about this man who, the first line is something about, I was told to board a flight. And it's about this man who is told to board a flight. He gets on this flight to his home country, departing from the country where he has become a citizen. There are no proper nouns in this book. None of the characters have names. None of the countries are named. Like, nothing is, so it's not all that clear, but it, like, I think the description, like the Goodreads description, says he goes to sub-Saharan Africa. So, like, somewhere, it's pretty clear it's Africa, somewhere around, like, a poorer country in Africa. And he's probably coming from either the UK or the US, I would assume, but, like, I don't know, just the country where he has become a citizen. And it's just describing the bizarre encounters that he has with strangers on his journey. And also his relationship with his brother. Well, we never actually meet the brother, kind of. It was really weird, and it's really hard to describe, and it's hard to say what it was, like, necessarily about, because it was really kind of a series of tangents about different topics and different stories that kind of wove into the main story, but also kind of didn't. They were just, like, the stories of the people he came across. And there's, like, sort of a coming together type, like, twist, but not twist at the end that I appreciated because it felt like the book went full circle in that way. But it just overall was very strange. The writing was very strange and very unsettling. Unsettling is definitely the word, that it was just like, what's going on and why? But I liked it, I think. I think I liked it. I really want other people to read it so that I can hear them talk about it. I gave it a 3.5 star because it was, like, good, but it was good. I think it's a very Women's Prize book. Like, it's a weird selection that the Women's Prize would go for because the writing is so experimental. And the themes of, like, what is home and displacement and diaspora and what ownership do you have over a country and a place after you leave, and, like, familial relationships. It just was, like, weird, though. It was really weird. And then I read Enter Ghost by Isabella Hamad. This is the one that I was really excited for because it's about a production of Hamlet that's set in Palestine. And we follow this woman who is from she's Palestinian, but she currently lives, like, she grew up in Palestine, but she lives in London, and she's going to visit her sister who still lives in Palestine, and just like kind of for an extended vacation. She's an actress, and she meets her sister's friend who is directing a production of Hamlet, in Arabic. The production is fully in classical Arabic. And so it's kind of a politicized thing, just like the play is, just on the grounds that anything Palestinians do that represent their culture is politicized by the Israeli state. So, yeah, and our main character is playing Gertrude. The thing about this, though, is that nothing beyond that really happened at all until like 80%. So for a lot of it, like, the writing was good. The writing is going to be good in all of these, but the writing was quite good. There were a lot of discussions of the play itself. I think if you aren't familiar with Hamlet or aren't familiar with like theatrical structures, it might be a little more obscure. But I am familiar with Hamlet, and there was interesting like conversations being had, but nothing really happened until the end. It's not that long, but I feel like it was too long, because not enough happened to fill the pages. It was interesting though because there was a kind of multimedia element, but not in like a popular literature type way. In that some of the scenes, particularly the scenes where they were rehearsing, were written as if they were the script of a play. So it would be like, you have the characters and like their line, what they're saying, and like stage directions. So that was interesting. I think it'll probably be shortlisted just because of the subject matter. And it's an interesting subject matter. The concept was really strong, and the concept kind of carries it. But and the end was good. The end was compelling, but otherwise, just okay. 3.5 stars. And those are the 3 books that I read since. On the bottom of the list of 5 that I have read thus far, I would put Western Lane pretty clearly. And then I would say this one, Enter Ghost, which is a disappointment. I really would have liked this to be higher on my list because I was really looking forward to it, and it's the one that everyone says is going to win and that kind of stuff. And then I would say Hangman, and then Brotherless Night, and at the top, And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. I thought And Then She Fell was really strong, and that's kind of even grown in my esteem since I read it. So that's a good sign. That's where we're at. I'm reading Night Bloom next. I didn't grab it, but that's my next read. I'm like 30 pages in, so I'm not going to tell you about it yet. Or I guess I'll introduce the idea. It starts. I'll grab it. Night Bloom by Peace Ajo Mehdi. We are following our character whose name is, doesn't matter. It starts with an A. And her cousin Selassie, who they're really close, but you kind of know that something's going to go south between them. The first line is, "My mother said that she'd always known," and that's kind of implying she'd always, and the following lines are kind of implying she'd always known something was going to go wrong with this relationship with Selassie. They're cousins, and they're very close friends as children. We're in Ghana, and our 2 characters, particularly our main character, our perspective character, she's really working hard to become a doctor. She wants to go to Harvard. So she's going to school in Ghana. She goes for like 6th form or whatever, she goes to this really strict Catholic boarding school, run by nuns. And that's where we are right now, but she not very far in. So I assume she's going to go to Harvard or some equivalent, and that's going to be the majority of the book. But I think it's about the relationship between those 2 cousins, and yeah. The other thing is that I have a little book haul, Women's Prize book haul. I am in Edinburgh, and this book, The Maiden by Kate Foster, is set in Edinburgh, and in October 1679, it says. and I can't get access to this one in the US because I don't think it's published in the US yet, so I couldn't get it from my library. So I bought it in a bookshop in a Blackwell's today. So that's very exciting. I'm excited to read it. I hope that I will read it before the shortlist comes out, because if the shortlist comes out and this doesn't make the shortlist, I'm like less likely to read it right away. But today is the 16th and the shortlist comes out on the 24th, so I have a little bit of time. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Long update. Thanks for bearing with. Hopefully I will check in with you after I have finished this one and not after I have finished 3 more. So thank you for your patience. Hello, I'm here. I have to talk quietly because it's 6 a.m. and my partner's still asleep. But the shortlist is out. And I'm here to give you my official prediction for the shortlist. Firstly, I did finish Night Bloom. I will give you a full update thoughts on that later, but we are here to see the shortlist. So, my shortlist prediction is Enter Ghost, Hangman, 8 Lives of a Century-Old Trickster, Soldier Sailor, Brotherless Knight, and In Defense of the Act. That's my official prediction / wish list, because I'm putting books on there that I've read, but also like I did put some books on there that I haven't read, so I think it's fair. Shall we look? I think we should look. Time to find out how many books I have to read in the next month or so while I have a lot else to read. Okay. I have to open my laptop, so give me a minute. Okay. I'm gonna click on the email because I'm subscribed to their email. The Wren, Brotherless Knight, Restless Dolly Maunder. That's a surprise because people didn't like that one. Enter Ghost, Soldier Sailor, and River East, River West. Hangman didn't make it. I like that one. I don't know if I like it. I like it. That, you've heard my thoughts. I just wanted other people to read it. Pumpkin is trying to move my camera hand. Okay, so I have 4 to read. And I have to buy Soldier Sailor. 2 Irish authors. That's interesting because there was a lot of discussion. There are 3 Irish authors on the long list. There's a lot of discussion of like only one of them can make it because we probably want a diverse shortlist. But here we have 2 Irish authors and an Australian and a Palestinian and a Sri Lankan and a Chinese. Interesting. Hello, I do owe you a review of Night Bloom by Peace Ejomedi. First of all, it is beautiful out. I am loving it. Birds chirping, sun shining, it's just beautiful. So, Night Bloom. I finished this on the plane home from Scotland, and I was about halfway through when I got on the plane, and right, like in the airport, I had been saying, like, I kind of want to DNF this. Like, I'm not interested. It's not, like, giving anything. And I had heard that it gets better in the second half, so I decided to push through, and it did, as soon as I started reading on the plane, get better almost immediately, because we have... I don't remember what synopsis I gave, but we have these 2 cousins, and we're starting on one perspective, and I didn't realize that there was a perspective shift. But about halfway through the book, we switched to the perspective of the other cousin, and we kind of go back and relive the events from the first half from the different perspectives. So ultimately, it's a book about perspective and how different people experience events differently, and
it's also about class and like privilege, as well as race, in ways that like how different people interact with the world and interact with the exact same events is based on all of these different factors. Um, Ultimately, I think I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a while ago, um, but yeah, like I did really enjoy it in the end, and I think it said some really interesting things, and like it's true that like while I was on the plane, I was like not putting it down, um, but it wasn't it wasn't everything I wanted it to be, and I feel like for a book nominated for a prize to be only good halfway through is like not it. So this goes at the bottom of the 3.5 star list for me. Yeah. Other shortlist thoughts. I think that Hangman was kind of robbed, just because I think it's such an excellent, like, really interesting, meaty piece of writing that like it seems perfect for this kind of prize, even though I didn't love it the most. Like I did like it, even though it wasn't my favorite. I really think that it deserved to be on the short list. But otherwise, I think it's a decent short list. It's fine. I'm not surprised that Ender Ghost made it. I'm not surprised that Brotherless Night made it, and the others I will read in a video coming soon. So coming depends how soon I read them, I guess, as how soon it's coming. Either shortly after the winner is announced or when I finish reading all of them, so I can do a prediction, and then maybe I'll do a reaction to the winner separately. But yeah, that's this video. I read 6 books. My shortlist vlog I will be starting right away, because I have actually already started the first book for that vlog, so that'll be coming. And let me know down below if any of these books are intriguing to you at all based on my descriptions, or if you have been following the prize, if you have any thoughts on the shortlist. I would love to hear them. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one, coming very soon, hopefully. Bye!